Hey, what's up, y'all? If it's your first time here, welcome. If not, welcome back. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much. I know there's so much content out there, so the fact that you would take the time out of your day to listen to me means the world. If you find any value in the content that I produce and want to support, or if you're interested in the Faith Over Fear gear that you may have seen me wear, please feel free to check out the website faithoverfearstore.com. And as a special thank you for listening and watching, use discount code LESSONS at checkout.
All right. So, first talking point. I was injured. Yeah, when I was on the road, I got injured. Yeah. And that was a few years back. And through working through that injury, I've learned injury brought embarrassment. Embarrassment brought shame. Shame creates lack of value. Lack of value breeds toxicity. Yeah. A lot of people talk about like, oh, toxic this, toxic that, toxic this, but don't ever really understand where the toxicities came from.
Right.
And I think a lot of times it gets blamed on our upbringing or blamed on societal situations. I think a lot of us are running around with injuries that we don't know about. You know what I mean? That knee injury that we got 5 years ago, that ankle twist that we did 10 years ago. All of those things, we never really went in and like did the healing of that specific area. So like that trauma just lives in there. And as I said, like my injury brought embarrassment. I was embarrassed. I mean, still to this day, because I'm not all the way 100, like embarrassed to dance. Yeah, that's crazy. I was like, I got injured in the middle of the residency. After that, I did a tour and I did Super Bowl. Yeah, so like it's not like I stopped dancing, but there was a level of embarrassment that came along with my movement.
Right, because you didn't feel like you could do it at 100.
Exactly. Right. Even when it comes to like going out, right? Like I know that this hurts. So all the while, if I'm out and about, like, oh, this hurts. Yeah. It's still in my mind. It's still I'm not 100% of me. So then there's with that embarrassment brought shame, because then I felt shame about myself, like shameful that like I can't maneuver the way that I should. Shameful that like at such a young age I have a crippling injury. Shameful that like I couldn't just get up and go like how I would like to go. Right. Through that shame created a lack of value. I no longer valued the vessel. I no longer valued myself. I no longer valued my skill sets because they weren't at 100%. They were at 60% or 70% or wherever they might have landed. Like I no longer had value for that skill set, no longer had value for myself because I think I placed all my value in what I did instead of who I was. Right. Yeah. So, oh yes, I dance. Yes, I'm a physical person. Yes, I do all of these things. So I placed value on what I did instead of who I was. So because of that embarrassment that I felt and that shame that I felt, I started to have a lack of value for self. In that lack of value is where I found my toxic. Yeah, that's when like all the disbelief in self crept in. That's when alcohol got bad. That's when like at the time I was doing pain pills, and then like laziness seeped in. That laziness created more shame. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like just,
and that keeps you in the whole loop, the whole cycle.
Yes.
Because once you start not doing the things that you did to feel good for yourself, it creates more shame, because shame is debilitating. All you want is the short pleasures. Yeah. All you want is the quick releases, and you know, people get to very desperate places in that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like a major reason why. Okay, I think that maybe this one should be shame. Like, let's talk about shame. Like, where, like, how does shame get created? One, where does shame come from? Yeah, how does shame get created? Where does shame come from? All of these things. Like, when have you as a male felt shame?
Oh, we're still getting past the shame. I felt a lot of shame over the last few years. There was a lot of going through the personal adversity back in like 2014. I was very ashamed of how I responded to everything. I think I mentioned before that I jumped into a new relationship. I became very codependent. And in that time, I also picked up heavy drugs. So it wasn't pain pills, but I was doing coke. I was doing Molly. I was doing Adderall for sure. everything to like keep me up so I can do work, but I wasn't doing work. And then I would feel more shame about that, and the shame of not, actually going out and being a dancer, even I wasn't even being a creative or a director. I wasn't doing anything for me. I was doing so much work for other people, then felt so upset, envy, and shameful that I wasn't doing anything for myself, that I would just go into more things that would give me the quick fixes. Drug use became a really regular thing for me every other day. And to the point that it's almost like the drugs didn't really have the same effect. Like I would do a bump of coke and go to bed. And that's not what you use cocaine for.
Yeah,
like,
it's an upper.
If anything, I pissed off my friends, be like, hey, don't do this just to go to sleep. I'm like, and that's a problem.
Do you still consider those friends?
Well, they're not around anymore, no. I don't blame anybody either. That was all me wanting to participate because I was so hurt that I just said, fuck it.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And when you get to that place of desperation, of fuck it, that pain. And here's the thing, when you were talking, what I was thinking was like, man, it's so crazy how such a little shift of perspective or difference, where if, the injury, if it caused you to feel more grateful for the fact that, man, I can't wait till my body is 100 to do this, it would have been a different process for you. And now, but I understand how and why you felt the way you did.
Yeah.
Because it's a very human, normal thing to be upset about these things.
Well, I didn't get to come off of work. It's not like I had an injury and then I get to go sit down.
Right.
No, I had an injury. I was in the ER, and then fucking 3 days later, I was back on stage doing the same thing that I got the injury from.
And you had to continue doing it.
Correct. For months.
Exactly. And so it's like it adds to, but it's like the shame of us, the embarrassment really leads to, as you said, the toxic traits.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree. I know that for myself, that yes, when you feel embarrassed, guilty, or ashamed, that there's such heavy emotions that we generally look to consuming something to make us feel better.
And that's that false sense of dopamine.
For sure.
I call it false pleasure, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I believe that.
You call it false pleasure, I call it a hollow pleasure. Like it's
hollow pleasure, and I like that.
Yeah, it's because like if you take sex or porn or masturbation into it, it doesn't feel as good as you think it should. And it definitely doesn't feel as good as when you're connected with somebody else.
Correct.
So it feels hollow.
Correct. But
we're so fixed on trying to get out of the shamefulness that we forget that, it's a kind of a slower process, and it's more about the action.
Do you think, I don't know what I think. I'm asking this because I'm questioning it to myself the first time. Do you think that men are expected to be okay living in shame?
I'm going to say
unconsciously.
I think that it is expected, because as we kind of have seen throughout the last 10 years, even though mental health has become a more talked about thing, people don't know how to handle men's emotions. Even men don't know how to handle their emotions. They don't know how to talk about it. You go try to talk to an older generation, many of them will be like, well, I didn't have someone to talk to, or that's just how it was, and da-da-da-da-da. And by doing that, they are implying to what you said, that you are expected to handle your shame however you need to, but get through it.
Yeah. And put a smile on tomorrow, because don't nobody give a fuck.
Right. And the truth is, they don't. And that's the again, the wonderful balance of the double-edged sword is that nobody cares, because everybody's got their own thing going on.
Absolutely.
Execution matters most when it comes to business and what you have to get done with other people. But to the flip side of that is that we also need to understand that, we still have to put in care for those things for our sake, and even for the sake of anything else.
Okay, another question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago, and it was about men's shame and vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In my belief, we as men are being asked to be more vulnerable.
Yep.
But the vulnerability is also being dictated what it gets to look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. To the earlier point with the other question is like, yeah, nobody knows how to handle it, and to the point they want to. Your vulnerability can only look like this.
Correct.
And
because if
your
it looks like that over there, it's called toxic. Or if it looks like that over there, it's bad. Or if it looks like that over there,
I just don't know how to handle it. Exactly. If you're crying too much,
but no. They don't do the I don't know how to handle it. When it in my opinion, I have very rarely had anybody say I don't know how to handle it. It's always here's a title in which you fall under due to the fact that that's bad.
Right. Because that's how they're labeling it.
Because all of a sudden I'm a bad man, I'm a broken man, I'm a toxic man, I'm a this or I'm a that. But in reality, we just come from different ecosystems, and the way that we handle our shit is different.
Right.
And sometimes I do need to
yeah.
Like fuck, know. But you can't do that in the world.
Right. And again, because your point is that vulnerability, if it doesn't look this way, then it is deemed as bad.
Correct.
And most people don't have the compassion or just the emotional maturity to like
accept it,
to sit in it, to just be okay. They're having a moment. They don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it again so hard for then men to bother expressing, to even want to express, to know how to express. Like nobody's gonna know unless you give them an opportunity to express, and then you can talk it out.
But when that opportunity is given, it's very rarely that it's listened to. It's always, well, it can't look like that. Don't let it look like that. It's like, are you listening to what's coming out of my mouth, or are you just telling me how I need to be accepted? Because I'm not looking to be accepted. I'm listening to be heard, or looking to be heard.
Right. Oh, but that's a very subtle nuance, though, between being accepted and being heard.
So we were just saying accepted versus heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
I just say, I guess what feels interesting about it is that to be heard in a way is still to be accepted, even if you don't care for that person's, I guess, validation in the acceptance.
Correct.
But they're all very nuanced.
But you don't have to accept it to be your perspective or your truth or your values.
Or to be, or to be true.
What I mean? Like, we all have different experiences in this world.
Right.
And what I'm learning more than anything else in my life is that we are all different. There's not one individual that's like me, not one individual that's like you. There's things that we think the same.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, there's no one human that is the same through and through.
No.
And it almost seems like there's a game being played where it's better for us to be pinned against each other and not taking accountability for our own shit, because then we don't grow. So if we're pinned against each other and we're not taking accountability to our own shit, we always have somebody to argue with. So because we always have the opposition, we never actually sit in our shit. Because we always have somebody who is in opposition. We always have an enemy. We always have somebody that we're up against. And it seems like more and more, they're just trying to say this group versus that group, this type versus this type. That way, we never actually sit down and say, oh, we're the fucking same. We just think different.
But is it us versus someone else or us versus ourselves then?
It is supposed to be us versus ourselves. Absolutely. Right. I think that it's sold to us that each group has to go up against each other. You know what I mean? Like when I look at female-male relationships, and I'm not saying out in the wild, I mean like in this internet space, I see more women telling men how they need to be and more men telling women how they need to be than I hear men talking about what they need to be as a man and women talking about what they need to be as a woman. And I don't have the tools for women and women don't have the tools for me.
Right.
You know, because even with that being said, every girl that I've ever dated has been different. And what they want is different. And what they expect out of a man is different. So not one woman on earth knows how to say, hey, if you want to genuinely be a man, this is what you do.
Right.
No, that's what you would like out of a man. That's what you view as masculinity. That's what you view for your values.
Yeah.
Same thing, vice versa, when it comes to men. There's not a man on earth that can look at a woman and say, if you do these 10 things, that's what makes you a woman.
Right.
Yeah.
That's only to what his experience is.
And what he believes a woman should be and how he believes a woman should act.
Right.
And that's what we are also losing. They're trying to create, in my opinion, a one-size-fits-all, and it loses intimacy.
Yes.
Intimacy gets thrown out of the window because back in the day, you would be excited when you met somebody new because it's an opportunity to meet somebody new.
Yeah.
Now you meet somebody new and it's like, all right, which one of these 5 types are you? Because nobody's original anymore. You're a part of these 5 types. You're either this one, that one, this one, or the third, is what it feels like. Yeah? I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that it's what it feels like when you go into conversation.
I do feel part of it is kind of true. Because I think to the point, everyone is unique. You're right. Nobody has any things that are the same, but there are similar patterns. You know, as you said, like, you know, certain things that we may think the same, and that goes into those patterns. I mean, I see both sides of the coin of it, with the fact that, I'm trying to think of what's the way to say it. I lost it.
So yeah, man, to wrap that back into like what we were saying, like just the accountability, the shame, the being heard versus being accepted, all of the things. I believe that's another part of shame. When you feel shame, you don't feel heard or accepted, even if the person on the other side of the fence does hear you and does accept you. Your shame outshadows their acceptance. Your shame outshadows them hearing you.
Shame is isolating.
Yes.
Yes. And that is a very difficult thing because you can admit your shame to somebody else, and even if they say, I understand, you're like, no, but you don't.
Exactly. And it's like, well, how can I if you always tell me I don't?
Right.
If I don't,
or just not even
enlighten me.
or even being open to it. Because I think one time I heard something about great suffering and great pain is that even though it doesn't make sense and there may not be an answer for it, somewhere along the line, there is going to be another person that you meet that does relate to that pain.
Correct.
Because I think what we forget is that even though pain is isolating, it's universal.
Yeah.
And even though I have never felt certain pains, that doesn't mean that I have never not felt pain.
Absolutely.
So just for people to remember the simple fact that we've all hurt and been hurt before, whether in different ways.
It's a very human experience.
It is a human experience, whether, you know, it's the loss of somebody in death or the loss of a friendship from parting ways. Like, grieving is grieving, pain is pain, a broken bone is a broken bone.
Absolutely.
You know, but the broken bone isn't as much an issue to the person that's broken and healed it versus the person who's never broken it or broken it once and scared after that.
Yes.
And I think that's for a lot of us to have to remember is that, you know, pain is isolating, and in your immediate core group, you might be isolated from those people because they may never experience it.
Absolutely.
But
that's the beauty of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're isolated from those people because you're supposed to go meet new.
Yes.
Because you're supposed to get poured into.
And it's supposed to open you. That pain is what opens up. And like, I think there's a quote or saying is like, the only way to let the light in is to break you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be broken in order to, and that's, you know, pain is usually the thing that forces us to have to do better. Because once you're comfortable and everything's good, then what are you working for?
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, it takes a very special human to say, oh, everything is good, let me do more.
Yeah.
Like, pain is usually the thing that pushes most people. It's like, I'm uncomfortable,
so
and I need to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but pain is usually what ideally is meant to be the new filter.
Yes.
But the hard part is what you said before with your experience is that if it's so overshadowing, you don't have that support system or somewhere where you can feel safe to talk about it, you then feel truly alone and isolated, and then it's very overwhelming.
Whatever happens in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it goes to depression.
I say in my classes all the time, if it don't hurt, it don't work. If it don't challenge you, it don't change you. If it don't hurt, it don't work. If it don't challenge you, it don't change you. Yeah. And I truly believe that even when it comes to like healing, right? Let's say that I sprained my ankle recently.
Yeah.
So in that, It hurts to go in and do the work. It hurts to like massage it out. It hurts to go and walk on uneven surfaces to make sure that like it gets its durability back. It hurts to do squats. It hurts to do a lot. But if it don't hurt, it don't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Growth is pain. There is no growth without growing pains.
Correct.
And we forget that.
And you know, like something that's interesting that you say, sometimes it takes pain for people to wake up. So I got a phone call from my mom today, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what we're going through with my family dynamic and everything like that. My dad had gotten a car for my mom. It's not nothing new. Just he got a car from a friend. My mom didn't have a car, so she needed a way to get around. So my pops got it, drove it out to Vegas from the Bay Area, doing what he got to do. You know what I mean? Dropped it off. And the whole time he was at my mom's house, he didn't drink. Now, my dad has been an alcoholic for my whole life. You know what I mean? My whole life he's been an alcoholic. I settled for my dad not doing drugs. And like, all right, if you're going to drink, you're going to drink. Like, I would rather you be a drunk than a drug addict.
Yeah. Yes? I mean, if you're going to pick lesser of two evils.
Come on, you know. But the whole time he was there, he didn't drink. Yeah. So then when my mom went to drop him off at the airport, he was like, hey, did you notice? And my mom was like, what do you mean? He was like, did you notice I didn't drink this week? She was like, yeah, I did, but I wanted you to bring it up because she was like, I don't know if that was just by happenstance or like it was intentional.
Right.
He was like, nah, I don't need it in my life anymore. Yeah. And my mom was like, yo, it sucks that like it took my brother passing for my brother to come or for my dad to come to this. Yeah. Nonetheless, that pain pushed him to a place where he's about to be 70 years old and he's like, I'm going to put the bottle down. So I decided
I want to see the rest.
Yeah, man. Like I decided a few days ago that I'm going to start this whole 6-month journey, right? I'm a month into it. I just said, let me pick up that month that I've already been doing this whole 6-month journey with a bunch of different things. Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm going to add alcohol to that. I called my pops today and was like, hey, pops, if you're putting the bottle down, so am I. Like, I got you, you know?
And see, what I love about that, though, is that from a distance, you're still able to be with somebody in their solidarity.
Absolutely.
Because that's the difference between loneliness and solidarity.
Correct.
Is that when you feel alone and nobody knows, nobody cares, nobody's trying.
Correct.
But for someone to reach out and be like, I see what you're doing.
And I got you.
And I'm going to walk down that road with you. Mm-hmm. If you're going to go through it, I'm going to go through it with you. Absolutely. I love that. That's amazing. But yeah, my mom had a similar thing when she gave up smoking. She smoked cigarettes for like 20, 30 years. Ever since I was born, I've known her to smoke. You know, there was at least rules of not smoking in the house or whatever, but she was always a smoker. And it took a family friend dying from lung cancer for her to see it. And she had to go see him at the hospital. We went to the hospital. We went to visit him. And it was a very unfortunate thing because, you know, they put in a tube into your lungs to help you breathe. Mm-hmm.
But once you have assistance with that, it's not like they can take the assistance away.
Yeah, and to make it even worse, they were having troubles putting the tube in the right place. So at one point, air didn't get into his lungs. It was getting into his skin. So he was just looking very puffy. But the whole experience, that moment, my mom was like, no. And she quit cold turkey.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I've smoked a cigarette like once or twice. And I'm like, I can understand why this is such a difficult thing. I understand exactly why people can get into this. I understand exactly how it can take over your life. And it's such an easy little thing. And just the act alone of doing this, holding this, it becomes a habit.
Absolutely.
To go cold turkey, cut it off after 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But it takes that powerful of an experience.
Absolutely.
She had to see someone she knows that she cared about in that position for it to be like, boom. Yes. And no amount of asking from me as a child would have ever gotten that result.
Correct.
Because I'd asked.
But that's not, I say it all the time, right? Like I see a lot of men that have like a strained relationship with their dad. Mm-hmm. Based off of whatever the fuck happened.
Right.
Right? Or it didn't happen. But like my dad's addictions were there prior to my birth.
Yeah. That was his life.
Like my dad's addictions were there prior to my birth. If my birth wasn't strong enough to break his addiction, neither were my words. You know
That's true.
Mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It truly is. When it comes to addiction, it really, truly does come down to the individual that's stuck with that monkey on their back.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And I think we throw people away too easily.
Yeah, we put the borders up real quick.
We throw people away too easily, and in my opinion, a lot of time it is the men that get thrown away. Yeah, throw him away, throw him away, throw him away. He has to figure it out. He has to figure it out.
Even if he's got nobody there to show him or help him out, yeah, he's got to figure it out.
And it's not even so much about the showing him or that, like, he's still a human.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have to show you how to do something, but I do have to show you that I care.
Yeah.
If I want you to care enough to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care.
You know?
And
so it's like,
it takes that, yeah.
I think that we don't care. We show empathy and we show compassion to people's circumstance. Do we care about the person? Empathy and compassion is easy to offer a human given circumstance.
Yep.
To care about a person means no matter how many times in your eyes they fuck up, because remember, it's your perspective, your point of view, and your life.
Yeah.
And you're asking somebody who's battling shit that you have no idea about.
Right. They're battling
to
their
be
own.
you, and in reality, they're not. So like we can only accept the person that's in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to show somebody that you care is to continue to love them even through what you deem to be negative behavior.
Yes.
Or what you deem not to be right.
Right.
That's to show somebody you care.
Now here's the real fine line though, is when does it turn into enabling? When does it turn into
caring? And enabling is different.
Okay.
Yeah. Story. Let's say I have a wife. Yeah. And let's say that wife comes home every night and she drinks wine every night. And at first, it starts off with a glass. And then, 2 months go by, we're at a bottle. Okay. 2 more months go by, we're at 2 bottles. I'm like, all right, babe, like this is becoming a lot. Yeah. Right. I'm going to care for her through it. Mm-hmm. Enabling her is continuing to buy wine when I'm at the store. Enabling her is buying her tickets to the winery. Yeah. Enabling her is, why don't you go hang out with such and such and such and such, knowing that those are the women that she drinks with. That's enabling her. Right. Yeah. Caring is, hey, I'm not buying the wine. If you want to drink, you have to buy it because I will not spend money on your bad habit, but I will love you through it. Right. That is where a lot of people fault, is that they will, they assist in the problem, or they take care of the problem themselves and not letting the other person fix it or figure it out themselves. Now, this is the get you gotcha. Yeah. When you tell somebody no, the demon comes before the person. So that demon that's on their back, that monkey that's on their back, that's who reacts. Yeah, I usually call that the ego. Yes. We fight the demon, the ego, the monkey on the back. We fight that. Yep. And forget the person. Yep. Yeah. So does the person. Yeah. The person. Well, the person is has been taken over by. Exactly. The person reacts from the ego because they feel attacked, so they're going to get defensive, and then it turns into a battle of ego versus ego. Yeah. And I think what truly differs a passionate situation from a problematic one is if you're able to be quiet. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to let them get out of their system. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you got to let them scream, piss, moan, all of it, and that's male and female. Yeah. Like my homeboys, sometimes, oh, bro, you going through it, but I'm not going to stop you. Do your thing. And when you're done, I'm going to let you know where you disrespected me and that it's not going to happen again, but I need you to go ahead and get that out your system so we can have a real conversation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, because you can't have good conversation leads anywhere coming from an emotional place. You can be passionate. Correct. But if you let the emotion overtake it, then it's just going to turn into a screaming match, and then nothing gets heard or solved. And that's when one party has to say, you know what, I'm okay being screamed at right now. Right. You know what I mean? I'm okay being screamed at right now because it's for the betterment of you, the betterment of us, the betterment of unity. Like sometimes, like you got to bite the fucking bullet, man. You got to bite the fucking bullet. Like you can't like
responding because they feel attacked, and they're going to attack back regardless of what's being said.
Correct.
And that's the unfortunate part, because it's like you're not listening.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. No, it's fine. I believe often, males and females don't get to scream enough.
No, you're right.
Like scream.
Yeah.
That is a muscle. It is
screaming, crying, gratitude. They're all very releasing emotions that I don't think people, absolutely
get to
not.
do enough.
No. I think that's why they do have that place now that's like the break room or whatever you can go into and smash and destroy things. But funny thing, another person from another podcast, I think it was Jay Shetty, was talking about, if you don't have stress, frustration, or anxiety going into one of those rooms, that room will induce stress and anxiety to you, trying to break things. Like, it's a great place to go
if you feel away.
Yeah, to release it.
But if you don't have that and you go.
Yeah. But if you think about it, it's like you walking into a house that's just chaos and screaming and yelling, and you can't partake in it. It's just like, well, this is no good. Why would I want to come into this? Yeah. But I thought that was an interesting point. Something I maybe they should have a place for just like screaming.
It's called Runyon.
There's still people there.
So fucking what, man?
That's
so
true.
What?
Sometimes you need to be on the outdoors. Dude, you should actually get on one of these hikes closer in Sherman Oaks. I think you would like it. It's a little bit more isolated.
Yeah.
Gives you a
great...
great...
Like Fireman?
No, further down, where I used to live near Sherman Oaks, but Hazeltine.
Okay.
Like Ventura, Hazeltine, where I think Gelson's is, take it up to the hills. And there's two ways. There's a Nike missile factory over here on one side, and the other side is just another pathway. But you get the city and then the valley.
I'm with it.
But it's beautiful because it's a lot less people.
Oh yeah.
It's very isolated, very great for meditation. You can go ahead and scream over there. There's not going to be too many people. They'll be like,
I'll scream in my car in the mornings. If I'm asleep and I can't wake up, clearly I'm awake because I'm driving.
Right.
But if I feel like, what the fuck, I just turn the music down and I scream as loud as I can, like 7 or 8 times.
Yep. Yeah.
Just scream as loud as I can. There's days where I just want to be loud. And like, I feel like I can't. I feel like I'm not allowed.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not allowed to be loud, or I'm not allowed to be obnoxious without judgment. You know? And it's like, judge me if you want. The fucked up part is like, people are so harsh with their judgment now. But am I able to be just as harsh with my reaction?
No. It's only allowed to be one-sided, unfortunately. The person who's offended is generally the one who's allowed to have the opinion, not...
But their opinion often offends whoever they're talking to.
Oh, right. So but the fact that they offend you doesn't matter. It's just that you offended them first.
Welcome.
Right.
Welcome to America.
Right. No, it's annoying frustration for sure.
Yeah, bro.
I definitely understand that. It's like, this is why people need to find tribes or have their safe spaces in which they can do that, in which they can scream, shout. I mean, I had a moment in my car one time where I just started hitting the fucking car because I needed to hit something. Yeah. I just needed to fucking throw something. I'm like, I made the mistake of punching a wall before. I'm not punching walls or signs or anything like that.
Absolutely.
You do need to release. But to the point what said earlier, I think when we get to those things, we do need to take some kind of action, whether it's screaming, going to a boxing class or a gym or something that...
Just
something to release physically.
Yes.
The frustration.
Okay, so I got one more for you, brother.
All right.
So this 6-month journey that I am on, right?
Yeah.
2 things. A few things, actually. One of it is like no sex, no masturbation, no pornography, right?
Right.
And I call it a self-purification journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my self-purification journey. No dates, none of the things. Like, if I do go on a date, it's because like I'm genuinely interested in getting to know a person.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't even say that's a date.
It's meant to be relational building rather than like...
Absolutely.
Right.
It's meant to like, I want to know who you are.
Right.
I don't want to know what you do. I don't want to know your accolades. Who are you?
Right.
Yeah. But on that journey, one thing that I've noticed since stopping masturbation and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, how can I phrase this? So what happens to a male who's used to one of two things? Used to either having sex or used to masturbating. What happens to that male when he cuts both out of his life? In my opinion, there's a space of unease in the male because there's this sense of dopamine that's been released consistently that is no longer being released. So they have to figure out where they can fill that dopamine.
Yes.
Oftentimes it takes a while to figure out where you can fill that dopamine, or else you would have never created the bad habit in the first place.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes very purpose-driven.
Yes.
And I think that is the journey of semen retention. The semen retention is a journey of like finding purpose. Yeah, the longer you go without releasing your semen, the more closely you have a bond with your life, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because you haven't given your energy to anybody and nobody's put their energy on you.
Right.
Yeah. And I believe that while you go through the self-purification process, I believe that there's a chapter of it where you could come off as a creep and you could come off as a perv because you now have a lack of. It's like when a drug addict or an alcoholic or somebody goes through withdrawals.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Like you didn't look like a drug addict before you started your withdrawals. And then when you're done with your withdrawals, you don't look like a drug addict.
Yeah.
But in the midst of those withdrawals, oh, you was on dope.
Yeah.
Yeah? And I think the same thing happens when you stop masturbating and stop having sex. It's like you get real trying to sniff it out. Like, man, where is that? So everything that walked by becomes attractive. Yeah. And like, oh, women. And like you might come off the wrong way. Now, I don't know how many men are going through that in their life right now. I will say, though, it can have negative effects on the way men are viewed. This makes sense? Like, if I'm a woman, and I keep getting this foul-ass energy from men, or this man keeps looking at me, he's attractive and I'm an attractive woman, but he don't ever come talk to me. Well, maybe he's on a self-purification journey. And he's looking at you because, goddamn, you fine. But at the same time, he knows in his mind, I can't go talk to that because that's too close to the temptation that I don't want to give into.
Right.
Because I'm purifying myself right now.
Right.
So then you come off as a creep. Well, why do this man keep looking from across the room? Really because he's extremely interested in you. Nonetheless, he's on a self-purification journey that nobody knows about.
Right.
So he's a creep now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not to take away from the real pervs in the world.
No.
But I will say, hey, if we do want men to be better, and we do want men to go on more self-purifying journeys, this is one of the effects that come along with it.
But I mean that, right? But it still shouldn't be allowed something if it's overdone. Like to check someone out is one thing, but to be constantly looking or staring or to make it seem that obvious, where do you draw the line?
Looking is what kind of abuse?
Abuse, I guess, I guess it depends in context. Where somebody's
working out. But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I just think there's a still a bit of a fine line in terms of what the behavior is, because I get it. Especially, it's to your point. It's like somebody who's cutting out sugar is craving sugar, and all you see is that, and you just fuck. But
are withdrawals forever?
No, you're right.
It's a season, and while you go through the withdrawals, guess what? You don't even know that you're in it.
You're right. Most people definitely are not aware.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we draw a line? I'm still trying to figure out where the pin is at.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
I mean,
that's the hard part, right? Like that's it. That's the hard part.
What I feel like that comes down to in this simple yet complex problem is judgment and discernment, because
the one that's going through trying to stop some shit?
All parties, because
bro, but you see how much responsibility we put on somebody who's trying to stop something negative in their life?
Yeah.
We put all the responsibility on the person that's already doing the work and none of the responsibility on the person that is receiving energy.
Yeah.
There's also a responsibility that has to be taken upon the person who receives energy.
Accountability is on both ends, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that person that's already trying to stop something is trying already. They're already doing more than most.
Right, but then it's like it's not the fault of the other person.
Not saying it is the fault, but the understanding lies on the other person.
Right, and that's the point I was making is like having compassion to not judge the energy right away. But that's also the hardest part because as human beings, we're constantly judging everything. We're assessing everything to see what's a threat and what's not a threat.
Correct.
So it's, again, the gift and curse of that balance of a double-edged sword. Like, I'm judging because I need to know whether this is safe, whether this is okay, whether I continue going. But that same judgment can come off negatively and have negative effects and implications.
Did me on this, right? Yesterday I'm at Runyon, right? And you know, there's not supposed to be cars on the trail. Somehow there was a car on the trail, right? Not the dirt trail, but the cement trail.
Yeah.
And a car coming down, right? This woman has her headphones on. She's walking. The car is like coming at her. So I'm like, hey, there's a car behind you. You can see me. Like, lady, I'm waving at you. Hello.
Yeah.
And she just... And it's like, what world do we live in that I can't even save you from a car about to hit you because...
You're so... Yeah.
Because you're so like, no men get to talk to me. So much so that you'll get hit by a car. So much so that like, you are in danger. Yet I'm the one that's dangerous.
Right. But I mean, we don't know that that was the case if she just was not hearing you with the headphones on.
Bro, you can see me. You're walking towards me.
Wow.
If you're coming this way and I'm coming this way and I'm doing visible hey.
It's like you're doing work to ignore that.
You know what I mean?
Right. Even peripherals would be like, what's happening?
And it's no disrespect, but baby girl, it's disrespectful for you to think that I was even trying to, you feel me? Like,
right.
No disrespect.
Right.
And that's not like a look thing. It's just like, hey, human to human, like what's more perverted? The person that had no sexual connotation, no sexual energy, no type of want to pour into that, or the one that thinks that every man that comes their way has sexual this, that, and the other. Which one is more perverted?
Which one is more dangerous? That's the question.
So that it's an interesting space. So basically, long story short, it's a very interesting space going through this semen retention journey for multiple reasons. And I'm attracted physically and sexually to way more different types than I am attracted intimately.
Okay.
Yeah. Intimately, it's very few types that I'm attracted to. Where I could be like, yeah.
Right.
Sexually, physically, there's more types that I'm attracted to.
Right.
Now, is that because that is like the animalistic energy of like reproduction and male and testosterone? Or because I've turned on pornography and witnessed so many different types? So for young bulls, that's something that you got to think about as young men, that's something you got to think about as you dive into your pornography journey. Yeah, because who knows what age you are or what you're looking at. Just know all of that leaves an impression on you. And a lot of those impressions have nothing to do with the type of woman that you actually want to be intimate with. It only has to do with the type of woman that you want to have sexual relations with. And those sexual relations become, as Shaboobs would say, hollow pleasure. As I would say, false pleasure. As you would say, give it your own title that's going to keep you accountable to not doing so.
Right.
Just know the more that you witness, the further away from intimacy you're going to grow.
Right. Because intimacy is not reproducing what you see on the screens and all of that. No, it's really having those honest connections with the individual and yourself, knowing yourself. What do I actually like in this setting, with this person? But you have to get to know, you have to be intimate with yourself, and then you have to be intimate with yourself in order to really be intimate with somebody else and to be vulnerable, to be open. And you're definitely not going to get any of that from viewing porn. Because again, porn is fast food for your mind. It's a guilty little pleasure that makes you feel good for the moment, and has like long-term negative side effects.
And it's not even a good fast food.
No.
It's that fast food that's like
greasy, make you feel
shithole fast food in the middle of nowhere that you've never heard of before.
Yep. That make your stomach kind of hurt as soon as you're done eating. You're like, ugh.
And that's no disrespect to sex workers. No disrespect. No. Like I got buddies in the porn industry. There's no disrespect towards sex workers. Nonetheless, when it comes to consuming it, it's crazy how much money people make off of OnlyFans. That should give you like a bar to look at. Nonetheless, how many men are running around getting zero attention from women?
Here's a random question I want to ask. Because sex sells in this country, but is it problematic that we don't talk about the fact that it's all it is? Or maybe it's problematic because that's all we do is talk about it in a way?
I think that it sells because it's taboo.
So we don't talk about it, we just show it. Because, every ad, everything you see, the Kardashians, like all of it is sex sells.
Yes.
This whole industry.
Sex sells.
Sex sells. Like, yeah, great story, but I need a hot person to play the role so that we can get views and eyes and attention. And it's like, sometimes it just feels annoying because, like, do we ever grow past that? Like.
Well, in Europe, it's very different, right? Like, I remember going to Europe for the first time. And like I was in Italy, right? That's Europe, right? Yeah, it's European. Yeah, I was in Italy, and 3:00 would hit in the evening, 2:00, 1:00, something like that in the nighttime, right? And like the commercial all of a sudden changed, and it's just naked people, just naked people, and it's hella regular, and it's all over like all the channels. And it's like, the fuck is this, right? There's billboards with people with no shirt on, all of the things, right?
Wow.
All right. But because sex wasn't taboo, the body wasn't so, the vessel wasn't as visually triggering. Yeah, I think that because sex is taboo or nakedness is taboo here, even though it's not.
So what made it different though? Because I mean, here you still have ads and,
Well, I mean, but in Europe, there's a lot of abuse in Europe. Okay. So, like, from what I understand, I could be wrong. Don't fucking fact check me, because I could be fucking wrong. Or go fact check me because I could be fucking wrong. But from what I understand, there's a lot of like abuse, and I think that it's more the act than it is like the visual stimulation. As to where in America, it's the visual stimulation that pushes people to have an act.
Right.
Yeah. So, like, I think. Over there, it's more so like, just the act of it is so taboo. The act of doing this, that. So people go for what they're not allowed to do. This makes sense?
But they still show it.
Yeah. But because the naked body is seen as art over there. It's not seen as sex. Or, sex is seen as sex.
Because it's not being objectified the same way as it is here.
The act of sex is sexting. Here, the fucking... shoulder is seen as sex here. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, everything is sexual.
Right, because it's always, even the implications. They show you, a naked shoulder from like here up.
And you're already thinking sex.
Right. It's just so crazy because sometimes it does get a little bit annoying. It's like, man, I get it, but can we ever sell or talk about something else or utilize something else? And then it's like, you want to play the game, but my God, sometimes it just gets annoying to think like I gotta sell myself somehow, so it means I have to be deemed attractive by somebody and try to sell the physical of it, and it just gets to be a bit overwhelming sometimes because it's like, man, I get sex is a hook, but it's not the only thing.
I know that I've come to a place in my life where it's like, what the fuck is the point? The fuck is the point? Yeah. Fuck is the point? Like, I gotta get up early tomorrow. I gotta get up early tomorrow. Nonetheless, I will give myself credit. I don't give myself credit enough for like the things that I've put in place that have made me to think this way. Yeah. I will say that a year and a half or so ago, I set my schedule to where like I would work the mornings after a night that I would normally want to go out.
Like a Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
So that way, yeah. So that way you
Friday
don't.
mornings.
Yeah, right. So that way you don't tempt
Go
yourself.
out.
Yeah. Honestly, that's what I did before. Like, I told you one of my things is like, the best way I knew when I grew by myself was that I just removed all temptations.
Boom. And it's like, I'll still go out on a Tuesday, but that Tuesday ain't going to be the same as that.
Right.
You feel me?
Exactly. I mean, for me, my excuse was the dogs.
Yeah.
The dogs were 100% my excuse. Dude, my dogs don't care about my hangover. And you know what the last thing you want to do when you're hungover at 7 a.m. is walk
your dog.
Just walk the dog. Like, last thing you want to do is be at a damn dog park. But nonetheless, that was the thing. So I definitely utilized that as well, for sure, because that's, you know, I think that's the trick for a lot of us, is that yes, those are I don't want to say guilty pleasures. They're just hollow pleasures. Going out, there's nothing wrong with them. There are its time and place, but in the next phase, in the growth and the establishment and the having roots, you have to put the boundaries up so that it's like, I know how to operate at my best, and I know how to keep myself away from the penalties.
Boom.
Like, one of the best things I heard in my life is like, some people don't realize that it's not that you're not getting ahead in life, is that you keep doing things that keep holding you back.
Come on, say that again.
It's not that you're not getting ahead in life, you just keep doing things that keep holding you back.
One more time.
It's not that you're not getting ahead in life, is you keep doing things that are holding you back.
It ain't that you're not getting ahead in life.
You keep giving yourself some fucking penalties all the time. The holdings, the late, the delay of games. Every penalty you're given extra 5, 10, 15 yards, we take it away from ourselves.
Yeah.
And that turns into the late night partying, the getting drunk, the not being responsible, not checking where you have to be the next morning or what time. Like, all of those little things, those are the penalties.
You do that enough years in a row, bro, you are so backed up on penalty. You got so many negative yards, since we keep doing penalties.
Yeah.
You have so many negative yards.
Yeah.
That it's almost impossible to get forward.
Yeah. I mean, most often times, a lot of the times, you want to know who's going to win the football game is who's got the most turnovers.
Boom.
Because who's ever turned the ball.
It matters who the better team is. It matters who turns the ball over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, man, if we just showed up, be present enough to pay attention so we don't commit the penalties.
You know what I think? I think school is boring on purpose.
Yes.
I think school is fucking poke my eye out boring on purpose. So we never really learn to be excited about learning.
Correct. School is never designed with the student in mind. It was never. School.
Bro, my niece just sprained her knee and her ankle, right? She's freaking just like me. Just sprained her knee and her ankle. So she gets dropped off at school today, first day having her crutches. They then bring her into the office where she has to sit in the office because my mom then needed to go to the hospital to go get a doctor's note, clearing the school of any responsibility if the crutches break. So my niece can't go to class. My niece can't go learn. She can't do her studies because the school is worried
about getting sued. Yeah. That's not the mindset of it. No. Schools are not designed for the people who go there.
Fuck it all.
No. I mean, school is designed, and you look at the school system, the work system, the whole structure of it is designed to keep factory workers in place. We need to have people. There needs to be sheep. Mm-hmm. The unfortunate, sad truth, there's a shepherd and there are sheep. There's a lot of sheep. There's a lot more sheep than there are shepherds. And
call them sheeples.
Sheeples. There's a lot more sheeples than...
Don't be a sheeple.
Yeah, but that's the hard part. And to be honest, though, there's nothing wrong with it if a person is content in that. Some people are happy being that, and that's fine.
I don't think anybody's happy being a sheep. I don't think anybody's happy being a sheep all day long, all the time, forever. I think that if you're going to be a constructive human in a society that doesn't fall into depression or doesn't fall into like these vices, you have to be a leader somewhere. Whether it be your household, whether it be your marriage, whether it be you, whether it be...
I'm only going to push back on that is to say that I don't think that they necessarily need to be a leader as much as that the person would necessarily need a community.
I think they need to be a leader somewhere.
I think that...
Yeah. I think it's important for every individual to learn how to lead.
I don't argue that. I do think that, but I guess my point is that some people are having some people still feel fulfilled not having to do that.
Do they feel fulfilled, or are they used to a level of happiness that is lower than what they could have? And because they're used to it, they're content.
Because I do know that I think some people are happy being on the team. They don't have to be number one.
Nobody said you got to be number one.
Right.
Being number one and being a leader is different.
This is true. That is true. Yes. That is a very valid point. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Yes.
Number one on a football team would be the quarterback, right?
Usually, yes. That's ideally, yes.
But if Ray Lewis in the game, who the team captain?
You're absolutely right.
Ray Lewis. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when that defense is on the balls.
Even when the offense is on the ball, Ray Lewis somehow finds a way to be team captain of somebody who ain't even on the field.
Yeah, same with Von Miller. Yeah, no, you're right.
What I mean?
No, you're right. Number one doesn't mean leadership.
So, all right, I'll put it this way. So I'm working with a group of young women right now, primarily women. There's some boys as well. And they all dance. And they're finding it very hard to find each other's groove. Mm. Yeah. And the reason why I say it's important for everybody to take leadership at some point is because those that are used to leading need to take a back seat in order for them to understand how to lead better.
Yes. You have to follow.
Yes.
Leaders.
So if I have 15 dancers, we'll do smaller. If I have 6 dancers, for warm up, what would be very beneficial, and it's crazy because I learned this in football. So I'll take you all the way. I learned this in high school. I learned this in high school from football, but it applies to dance. Mm-hmm. Yes. If I have these 6 dancers and we do a warm up, it would be very beneficial for those 6 dancers to take turns leading the warm up. That doesn't mean each day is a different leader, but what it does mean is let's play 4 songs and let's just do follow steps. Very much so like dance fit, right? Yeah. Just do follow steps. It's grooving. For anybody that doesn't know what dance fit is or what follow steps are, just think like urban Zumba. Yeah. Think like hip hop abs or something. Like you just following along, right? Like I step, you step with me. Just follow along, right? It'd be very beneficial for within those 4 songs. Let's say Jay, you go. So Jay goes. All right, Steph, you go. Now Steph goes. All right, now Thomas, you go. Yeah. And then Lindsay, Sasha, Bernard, y'all go. Each person goes, and then the group has to follow that person. 2 things happen. 1, those that are used to being in a leadership position now have to follow those that are underneath them, quote unquote. Right. And also, they're now doing the natural movement of their teammates instead of always administering moves. Right. Instead of always giving the moves, you're now doing the movement of your teammates, which gives you more of a vocabulary to pull from when it is time for you to choreograph. It also gives you more of a vocabulary to understand when it comes to choreographing for people. Yeah. But the person that might be insecure or doubtful or never step into leadership position, what that does is that puts them in front of their dancers. And oftentimes when a team that's fucking with you, like it's your team, you see them every week. When a team that rocks with you knows that you have insecurity or knows that you typically don't stand in front of the room or knows that you typically don't do those things, when it's your turn to go up there, they are, 1, they have more grace for you. Mm-hmm. 2, they cheer you on more than might be necessary. But that's because they want to boost your spirit. Yeah. So your spirit gets boosted. You believe in yourself as a leader and you start to realize, holy shit, maybe I am good because they actually enjoyed doing my step. So maybe my awkward, funky groove is actually a good fucking awkward, funky groove. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's just, and I put it in that terms, or I put it into that because like I definitely think that it's important for every human to lead at some point because it only helps everybody else around them.
Yes. To your point though, leadership is not about barking orders or managing people.
Absolutely not.
Leadership, to the point you made, you have to learn how to follow. And in that following is you start to learn the love language and personality types of the people, just like you would the grooves and whatever it is they're doing. When you understand the language and the how or why somebody does something, it is so much easier to speak to them in the way that gets to them.
Absolutely.
You know, leadership is not about managing people and shaming people or getting people's cooperation. If you want to be a real leader, it is knowing how to actually motivate that person to do the thing that you want them to do with a good attitude.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, you're just asking for cooperation.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people think that you're just getting cooperation because you want to be the leader. And that's honestly one of my biggest issues being around the entertainment industry, because so many alpha people want to be leaders without ever actually being a good friend, a follower, or teammate. They just want to be the one in charge. They just want to be the creative one. I want to be the captain, the guy, the artist, the number one on the call sheet. But it's like, it's not gonna be sustainable, because you don't know how to be an actual leader. You don't know how to follow people. You don't know how to actually motivate people. That's why people cycle through and you keep losing people or keep switching up teams and nobody wants to stay around. It's because you're not being an actual leader. You have to learn how to be a leader. And a great leader comes with listening, pulling back, stepping out of your ego, really assessing, how does this person work well? What gets this person to actually do more, try more, care more? How do I push them? How do I pull them? It's different for everybody. And if you think that you're going to just get by in life by pushing everybody, all you're going to do is push them out. Yeah. You push them away. They won't care, because it's either they're going to sit up and tolerate and never going to like you and never going to actually want to collaborate and give more than that, or they will just go away. That's it.
You feel this in your spirit.
Yes. Because
just so you know, this one is in your spirit.
I've been having this issue about leadership for a long time.
Yeah. This one you fucking feel.
Dude, it bothers me because like
this one, he feels. Don't get it twisted, ladies and gentlemen.
Look,
Shaboobs is a nice guy. But on this topic, on this day, in this hour, on this minute and this second, Shaboobs
100%. Because it's a big deal to me, because it's like I'm a team player and I know how to be on the team and I like to help the team.
Come on.
But as a team player, I've been in also that leadership role. I've been in those positions, and when I come around other people who want that leadership role in that position, I'm just like, the difference though is that I still played both sides. I have played in the trenches and done that thing, and then it's come as well to come be the leader.
Come on.
Whereas everybody else just wants to play their one role.
Come on.
They don't want to get their hands dirty. It's like a director that has never acted. You can't really direct actors properly if you've never acted.
I don't want to make that as a strong statement.
But directing, they have practice in it.
Correct.
They have practice.
I don't want to make it as strong a statement as you can't.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
Just, trying to save tongue.
You're right. No, it's not that you can't. You will not be as effective.
Correct.
And
I don't even want to make that the strongest statement. It would be more effective if you have dabbled in acting.
Yes.
Let's not say what somebody cannot do. Let's say what.
Right, and there's always the outliers. There's always outliers too.
Exactly.
No. But to better your odds, to better the chances, to better the sustainability and keeping it long term, you want to get to know all the parts about it. And just like anything else, it's like, if you want to control the outcomes of things, you learn everything about it.
Absolutely. You
learn all the little bits about it. How do I screenwrite? I want to write a movie. How do we learn screenwriting? There's a format. Okay, well, what do I need? Okay, here's a quote I heard. It's like, it really only takes like 20 hours for someone to really sit down and learn something. 20 hours of focused attention, but it takes years to get to that first hour.
Yeah.
That's the same for the leadership. That's the same for a lot of these other things. And some people are...
Say that one more time.
That's the same for leadership and a lot of these other things.
About the hours.
It only takes... I don't want to say it only takes. On average, it takes, say, up to about 20 hours of focused work to actually learn something. Mm-hmm. But it takes years before we get to the first hour.
One more time.
We're delaying that first hour. It takes years to get to that first hour. It takes only about 20 hours. Like literally, if you sat down at your computer, Googled whatever it is that you want to know about, in about 3 hours of reading and consuming information, you will know more. Now, you take that up a notch, 20 hours. You can really become a good expert in 20 hours focused. But it takes us years before we get to that first hour. Yes. We're delaying that first hour because that first hour feels painful or it's hard to get through.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree.
And that's the biggest, for the fault of a lot of us. That's why fear is such a big thing. The moment that you learn something and have understanding about it, you're not as afraid anymore.
You know what fucked me up in this conversation in life right now, this shit. There was a time where I was injured.
Yeah.
Right? It was in the middle of my injury. This is when I was living in Vegas. So this is like injury still very fresh.
Right.
And I didn't have a desktop. All I had was my laptop. But I would sit at that laptop and I would edit for 8 to 12 hours and just go. And just create. No reason for it. Just create. Body would feel like shit. I would stand up, hips all out of alignment. It felt like fucking death.
Yep.
But I would do it. And I would do it. And I would do it. And at that time, I felt super creative. When I was walking up and down the street, I was looking at the world different.
Yep.
Because I was all the way in my craft.
Yeah. You're practicing it, so it allowed you to see it differently.
Right now, this consistency we're building, right, is what that is to take me to again. I don't like to say back to again. Yeah. I want to be able to stand here, and now that I have a desktop and I have a standing desk and it's not going to hurt as much and I've worked on my injury and it's not like crippling me anymore. I want to be able to stand here and edit 8, 12 hours and be happy. Yeah. Like I did that. I remember at that time, bro, I would wake up in the morning, I would hit the gym, I would eat, I'd come home, I'd hop on the laptop, I'm gonna edit for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna grab a snack. And I'll grab a snack and I might go do something. And while I'm doing that thing, I didn't even want to do that thing. It was like, no, I want to get back to editing. Yep. So like I'd turn on a movie and I'd be like, I don't even want to watch this movie. Go back to editing. And I love movies, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, or I'd be like, what's such and such? I don't even want to check my phone. Let me get back to it. Yeah. And when you're in it, you're in it. And when you're in it, that's when you can be your greatest. Yeah. And I think that first hour is the hardest to get into. Yeah. But once you get past that first hour, bruh, it's real. And I think what's hard about like editing or writing, right? That first hour is blank. Yeah. Yeah. And you don't know where to go. Sometimes that first hour is just getting your shit set up for you to edit. Yeah. Oh my God. It's the hardest. Over it. And you're over it. And and harder in the art world because you're just staring at a blank canvas. Correct. You're just like, okay, well, I can go anywhere. So where do we want to go? Correct. Yeah, it's absolutely the hardest part. But it's just, what makes that easier? Doing it. Correct. And it's what is the Nike slogan? Just do it. Fuck. Yeah. Brilliant. Absolutely. Brilliant. Yep. It's real, bro. It's real, bro. It's real, bro. And like, yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. It's real, bro. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy with today. Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. That was great. Oh, yeah. We're going to bring more content to y'all. Yeah. We're learning how we want this to be, what we want the setup to look like. We have somebody else that's going to be joining. I don't even know if this video is going to be one that we put full form on the internet. Probably won't. But I'll put an outro just because. Yeah. I am Matt Day. This is Shaboobs. And this is a podcast that has yet to be named. You feel me? Honestly, it's just a space for us to create consistency and vulnerability and be able to talk to other individuals and find our tribe. Yeah, we're not looking to tell y'all how to live life. We're not saying that our beliefs are the right way. We are saying this is what we've learned over our existence. We're going to continue to learn, and everything that we tell you is still being questioned at the time, right? Like everything that I've learned can be changed tomorrow if somebody changes my perspective. Right. You dig? So that's what's really enjoyable about this content is that we are going to be shift shaping and molding to the world as it continues. So I might say something today and in 4 months feel completely different. And then we get to pull up the receipt and see proof in the pudding of a man changing. Absolutely. Growth. If you want to pour in it all before we close this out. I just want to say is like, we're here not to like tell the world that this is how we believe and this is what you should believe too. This is really more about people expressing themselves so that others can relate. Because I think that's what everyone is searching for. Like we said earlier, it's to be heard or accepted. Correct. And doing this is really our way of hearing one another, accepting it, whether it be similar viewpoints or different viewpoints, because we do have different viewpoints. Absolutely. And having that open conversation, I think, is allowing for others to be like, okay, they can have the conversation. I can have the conversation. Grown men can have the conversation. People can have the conversation and respect one another and just relate to one another. Absolutely. Like we've had very different experiences, but still relate to many of the same things on our own end of the spectrum from those experiences. And just being able to relate, even with some of the things he's gone through, like I may not be able to have had the experience of some of those stories,
but I still relate to what he felt in that experience.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the most powerful part, is that if you can relate to somebody and understand them and their experiences, it leads to better understanding, compassion, and allows for growth. Because like what we said earlier is that if we can't be vulnerable, it doesn't allow us to grow, because we just shut it down. And if we're shutting down ourselves and vulnerability, we're going to explode, and we're shutting down a very real part of ourselves that is necessary not only to express, but for our own sake and for our own wealth to know and understand.
And I think that's why humans, I don't want to say just men, I think men and women go through this.
Yeah.
I think that when you suppress yourself for such a long time, it only comes out in relationship at that point. It will only come out with somebody that you feel 100% comfortable with, and when it does come out, typically destroys the relationship.
Yes.
And that's the part that sucks.
Yes, because when you shut down the vulnerability, like what you mentioned earlier, it leads to embarrassment, shame, and guilt. And actually take the embarrassment out, because the embarrassment just leads to shame and guilt, and those two lead to the toxic traits.
Yes.
And that's what keeps this whole cycle.
Toxic traits are you not wanting to get out of your funk, but you not wanting to exist in your funk.
And to not go through the funk.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because to get out of it, you got to go through it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But you also don't want to feel it, so you want to escape.
Yep.
And that's where toxic comes in.
Yep.
You're toxic because you want to escape, but you don't want to go through what you have to go through to not be in it.
This all last point to just say on all of it all. You can't numb your way out of it.
Yeah.
Because the numbing of it is what's going to keep you in it longer.
Novocaine.
You can't, like, the numbing of it, just like we've talked about before, the boundaries and the walls, even though they are important and necessary, if you build them too high, you will keep everybody out, and you keep the good out as well. If you numb yourself from the pain because you don't want to go through the pain, you will never really be able to get out of the pain. You'll just exist in the pain that's tolerable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's the daily frustration and life not going, is because you just tolerate it. So you can't numb yourself. You have to go through it. And in going through it, you find your balance of solidarity. I have to be alone and reflect on this, as well as let me find the tribe of people that support me and encourage me. Yeah. Boom. That was a good one.